It's the Tour de France transition stage, stage 19. Has to have one of these every year. Too hilly for the sprinters to control, too easy for there to be any GC action, tired legs in the peloton, and so Wood Philipsen and Alpecin just try and get in this breakaway. Campenaerts on the attack, Pedersen absolutely flying today, just got unlucky and got a bit isolated, and break formation. It took forever. This was like a classic, like watching a February race with Jumbo and UAE also trying to get their rouleurs, Laporte and Trentin in, Pedersen pulling Lutsenko, and there's splits in the first hour with actually UAE's Adam Yates here on the front on the wrong end of that, and UAE having to close that gap. Ineos might not have noticed, and every team wants to be in this break. Every team knows the break will win, so that's why you see Pollitt attacking today when he didn't yesterday, and EF trying to get Bediol in the move. Eventually, Alaphilippe is the man that snaps the elastic, going with Campenaerts, Pollitt, Haig, Trentin, Benoit, Pedersen, and this is a really strong breakaway with a lot of the strong teams represented, and we see it getting blocked up. And the day's break, it's taken us nearly 2 hours. We think it's finally gone, but some teams missed it. Israel didn't get in, and they want something out of the stage. UNOX and EF want something. And even though this break looks really strong and has a gap of a minute, 3 full teams working behind meant that gap just gradually came down and down and down. And with Niels Pollitt, one of the engines of that break, having a mishap, he snapped his chain. So this first bike, I think, is too small for him. And that was what was wrong. And he's on, or maybe he had a look pedals, and he's on Shimano pedals. And so then he says the next one definitely was the pedals were wrong. And then the third bike, I think, has the right pedals, but because he's 194 centimeters, it's way too small. So he gives up, and the brake looked ragged at this point anyway. The gap was a minute. He gets dumped out of that breakaway. That's his day over, and EF are mowing into it with Paulus. And at the intermediate sprint, Alpecin, who'd missed the breakaway, but also were suspiciously absent from the front chasing, all of a sudden get into a counter move with Van der Poel and Philipsen up the road, and this huge group goes. The peloton gets blocked up again through this town, and we have a counter move of like 35 riders going across to the original 8, and Benoit saying to Alaphilippe, I'm not pulling anymore. I got Laporte coming across, one of our best classics riders left here, and that's not the peloton. That's the counter move coming across to these guys. And Haig had 2 teammates coming across. Trentin was isolated though, and whilst he's arguing with Alaphilippe, who had Asgreen behind, Campenaerts anticipates again and actually gets a fair old gap with EF, who've just spent the last, hour chasing. Van der Poel doesn't want to spend his bickies closing it back, so Clark, with 4 Israel riders in that move, decides the best place to be is actually up front, and UNOX can chase, or EF, or another team. And, did UNOX need to be the team that chased with Philipsen and Laporte in this group and Pidcock? No, they didn't, but they did, and they spent charming on the climb. But by the actual final 2K, 6% climb with 29Ks to go, Asgreen just absolutely whacks it with Campenaerts, kind of a sitting duck up the road. O'Connor's on his wheel, and Moritz knew this was the moment, this was the move to go with the previous stage's winner, an absolute truck, and these 3 are fully committed, and it's absolute chaos behind, with no one wanting to pull too much with others in their wheel. When you see them fanned across the road like this, not enough strong domestiques, like Pedersen doesn't have a teammate. Haig and Alaphilippe and Wright were blocking it up or marking every single move that tried to go. They're on the wheel of Laporte, they're on the wheel of Bediol, or Pedersen right here has got Haig third wheel, and this group's working seamlessly together now with a gap of 30 seconds, and that chaos continues behind with Laporte using the descent to go clear, but MVDP doesn't relay with him despite the group up the road. He plays almost the Philipsen card behind, but then gets into the other chase groups with Zimmerman, Bediol and co, and by the time there is a chase, they're all cooked. Asgreen stomping, O'Connor's still working because, at worst he gets third on the stage. Moritz is fully committed, and only in the last 600 meters do we see O'Connor finesse. Moritz tighten up the boots. O'Connor throws in